Alrighty, let's see if this is coming through and working. Ben here from Second Dynasty. It looks like the stream is showing that the audio is coming through, which is wonderful. It is Friday, the 46th live stream for 2024. We've actually managed to do one a week, despite the holidays. And yeah, everything looks like it's going well. So welcome to the chat. Let's just say hello to the regulars that are here. We've got Doug, we've got Brian, Solo Spirit, Tamsin, Shergel, Alex. Welcome, welcome. It is Friday. Today we are going to be doing some work on one of the Sword World ships from the 5th Frontier War campaign. But first, I thought I would take you guys through what we've been up to in the last week. And of course you can see what I've called the Hyperion Sphere here in Maya, which took longer than I would like normally for a Tribes product. I'd say probably 8 production days in total. Although, you know, some developments along the way that will lead to future improvements. And actually this is kind of a good segue into what will be our sort of end of year mini campaign in December, where we release Gridforge.
Woo!
As Alvin says, and yes, that was Alvin in the background. And if you hear any other laughter, it's possibly Cornelia, our new intern, so welcome her. We've been hard at work on a lot of stuff. Of course, we've got the deliveries going for the Traveller 5th Frontier War campaign, so Alvin has been continuing to work on some of the APCs for that this week, right?
Sorry? Yeah, I got an
APCs.
and it's actually getting there finally. I just need to stitch stuff up and send it to John.
Stitch stuff up and send it to John. You heard it here first.
Yay.
I'm not sure what that means, but actually I think it's mostly due to the fact that we're coordinating interiors and exteriors. If you're wondering why I keep looking down, it is because I was removing the supports from one of these. Let me switch the camera real quick to the close-up cam, and you can see here, this is actually one of the frames we have for Gridforge. Now this is compatible with support eclipse, these tiny, tiny little things. And of course we have open lock clip converters for those as well, which is probably harder to see. There you go, something like that. Very good. And yeah, the nice thing about these, aside from the fact that they print out pretty quick and come in a range of sizes regarding the tightness, the best thing is the supported clips. I can print out about 50 supported clips in about 48 minutes on my P1P. Well, my camera's really out of focus at the moment. And the open lock clips would take probably 3 times as much. And in most cases, supported clips have enough strength, especially for tiles, and especially if you're not stacking decks, to keep things in place really nicely. So I just wanted to show off that the one thing I haven't printed, because I just realized I forgot, is the very, very top of the Hyperion Sphere. Or rather, I'm missing this here little turret ring based antenna, which actually is articulated unlike our older style ones. There are a few improvements here which are exciting to show you soon, but I'm going to switch back to the camera so I can just lift it into position and you can see the sphere and how large it actually is. I really like the detail on the underside there. Got your airlocks. Ah, my glasses. No, they're a casualty. Alright, let me take the top off And we can, I guess I also forgot to put in the chairs. But here you got your top deck, and all of this is actually customized using the new Gridforge system. Which basically means I'm going to try and hold this up at the same time. It's kind of hard to hold this thing with one hand, but I will try. What's with the snicker there? You know what I'll try? I'll take the deck off. So we've just got this one, and try and demonstrate. So here, for example, this Jenny, you can just lift it off. Then you've got the thing that fits in really snugly. So for example, we could take out this server and stick it here instead, which is actually where it belongs. And this sort of shield generator-y thingy, put that back into place. Sorry, there is a little bit of a sort of like overlap here, mostly because the floor, you can kind of see, is intersecting with the control panels on the wall there. So this was a little bit of an issue, but I squeezed it back into space. So technically, I could, for example, this is probably a good one, push out this floor panel. And you could just replace that with whatever you wanted. So like, for example, I can change the orientation, nice and easy. And this is a quick and easy way, and the tiles print much quicker all round, and you can easily recycle all those bases. So I'm kind of excited for this. So that's our top deck, the ladder. I think the detail level is really nice. I can't see the chat at the moment, but the deck below, I kind of decided I already spent too much time on it, so you guys can customize the interiors. But for example, the other great thing about the tiles is they're a lot easier to paint because you can just pull these out. And I don't know, I find them a lot easier to handle. We've got these new beds with lockers on the back side. This does need a little bit of an adjustment, but otherwise, not bad for FDM. There we go. And that just sort of like fits down into the space. So I'll go through a digital tour too, because I realize my camera's not great, and we have the model here in 3D, so why the hell not? Let's just make some room on the table. We don't want any Friday accidents. Alright, let me switch over so I can see the chat. What are people saying? Other than, hi folks. Hey Will, hey Anders, Clive. Yeah, Jeff Jedi. Looks amazing. Great. And Stormy Smith. Totally sold on Gridforge. Yeah, I don't know how well it'll be. We're just going to run a frontier, nothing huge. And the good thing about frontiers is that there's no waiting time. And I should note that John has been working on this as a hobby since he was here over the summer. So it's official Second Dynasty stuff, but it is John's brainchild. And yeah, it is going to be, the actual clips and frames are going to be open sourced. So you will be able to make modifications to those frames and clips, but there will be a requirement that you have to share those. And then there will be options if you want to license it commercially for your own tiles or whatnot. I don't know if it's going to cost anything or what John has in mind, but the actual frames and systems and templates, will be open sourced. So let's have a look. I'm going to turn off all my layers except for the bottom deck. Oh, that one's supposed to be assigned to deck A. Let me just do that real quick. It's probably a little sluggish because of the light, so let me just add those to a layer that we can't touch. So yeah, we have here the lower deck where you've got all your tankage. Oh, it looks like we need a copy of this. This is actually the cleanest Miocene I have ever made at this stage of a production. I think I just kept, I was sort of in a cleaning mood, and kept on cleaning. Wow, that really doesn't look like it's aligning right. Let's get cheeky. My plan today is not to spend time on this, and I'm going to make an update for the Kickstarter because we haven't done that for a few weeks. Both for the Typhon. Yeah, John sent his apologies regarding the Typhon. He apparently made some kind of critical mistake and lost 2 days worth of work on the installation. So there is a delay. He said Lisa Little will have it on Monday. So yeah, the instructions are taking more time than anticipated. I was hoping to hold off on updates until we actually had some news, especially because it's the Black Friday sale next week. Wait, that's not today, is it?
Oh.
My Mini Factory always makes it start early. I know actual Black Friday isn't for a couple more weeks, but yeah. Anyway, I'm not sure. Can one of you Americans tell me which date Thanksgiving is this year? It's usually just 4 weeks before Christmas, isn't it? Or no, it can't be, because it's always a Thursday, right?
28th.
It's the 28th. Okay, so Black Friday is not until the 29th. Wow. Yeah, it'll definitely be before then. So this is our deck C. Great detail. It comes out really nicely. I didn't have any issues with the prints and the angles. No supports whatsoever. Hopefully other people have the same issue. Let's see. Deck B will take a little time to load in. You have your sort of sleeping area. You have your, I would say fresher, but it's just a toilet. Again, this is more like an Expand style ship, so I'm assuming no showers. Got some lockers. There's some other amenities that are missing, but I would just say, like, you know, maybe in this case, all your water and stuff's just in this sort of storage. Of course, since these tiles are modular, you could add in those things and put them where you like. You got 2 sort of phaser array style turrets. You have a custom new airlock that's kind of more like an ISS airlock, I guess, crossed with like a Nostromo airlock. And you have some wall panels for RCS. They came up with a new semiotic symbol for gas, and I believe black or dark gray, or is it dark brown, I can't remember, is the color for nitrogen, which I believe, I don't know if that actually is an RCS propellant. I think it's some kind of variant of nitrogen oxide or something like that is used. I'm not really a gas buff, but both me and Albert have been playing a lot of astronauts, so I kind of just use the one that we use for RCS in that. And by RCS, if you're not familiar, it stands for Reaction Control System. It's the thrusters you would see on a spaceship to maneuver, not the main thruster to propel it from place to place. Basically, whenever you see those little jets going tss, 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 of course there's no sound in space, but you can hear vibrations through the hull. And then of course we have the bridge, which is an open plan. I've got one of the seats from the Sleipnir there, with the Sleipnir era pilot. You can really see some cool lighting on that miniature. I'm surprised how well that turns out. Yeah. You know, you've got your little sort of plotting table. You've got your sort of gunner seat there. That one's ripped out of the Delta 2400. Got your server, shield, generator, although I guess it's just a generator of some kind. Yeah, there's a tiny little bit of, like this is intersecting here, but the actual model doesn't have an issue, just because of the natural gaps between pieces. And then of course we have some plumbing going on as well. A lot of people have commented on that being missing from our ships, and some more, I guess these are oxygen tanks. And then you have your top with the sort of like radar turret thingy. So this is all printable now. All I need to do are build plates and instructions, and it's ready to go. So, Sam says, boo, it's me. Hi, everyone. Hi. We also have someone called Blue, so welcome, Blue. Do the spherical tanks load in from below? I don't know. I do not know. Which ones?
Maybe they're inflatable.
I mean, we try to make them, like, somewhat believable, but, I mean, there are limits. I'm not an aeronautical engineer by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just a fan with some basic understanding of how things might work. So sort of like, I guess the technology level that we're trying to go for here is near future-ish. It might just be me, but this is a villain ship.
Oh.
I think maybe it's because it kind of looks like the, what is it, the separatist ships from episode 2. I don't know. It is like, I mean, well, it's not space balls, but it's definitely a space ball. So there's that. Yeah, that's definitely it. All right, yeah. So, all right, and thank you, Shogol, for letting us know about Thanksgiving being on the 28th. Trevor, welcome. Looks like the trade ship from Babylon 5-2. Yeah, I think it's kind of a common design. It actually, it's quite large. Anyway, what we're actually here to talk about, because I don't know, there's not too many changes with your stuff, is there, Albin?
Not really. It is mostly internal.
Mostly internal stuff. I think we'll show that off next week, maybe. Or something like that. So there's plenty of work going on. There are a few new Traveller designs, but I just realized I put Discord on the wrong window. I'm not going to open Discord on a live stream, so I won't be able to access that. But what I really wanted to show is this, not this book. I'm looking through this book now for sort of inspiration on what we could conceivably build in the future, which is the traders and gunboats. But actually no, this one is the Sword World source book for Mongoose Traveller role-playing game, and this is the Sword World's Gripen Aerospace / Close Orbit Interceptor. Now I'm going to read this text out because there is some, I feel, incongruency between the design intention and execution. And this is no jolt on the original artist's design. But let me read this and then we can discuss. So the technology level 10 Gripen, and Gripen is obviously a nod to either, because all of the Sword Worlds are basically space Vikings. It's a little bit funny to read through this book as a somewhat fluent Swedish speaker. They've literally just ripped names from Norwegian, Danish, Swedish, and Icelandic. There is no consistency between them and the naming conventions. But Gripen itself, the JAS 39, so or JAS 39 Gripen, or Griffin, specifically the Griffin, I believe, is a fighter you might have heard about. It's a native-built Swedish interceptor, or rather, I think JAS stands for Hunter and Interceptor. No. Jakt, attack.
I'm not sure what the last is.
Strike, maybe. But ja, osäkert. In any case, it's a pretty all-rounder sort of fighter, designed for defense specifically against Soviet forces. In any case, obviously this name probably got some inspiration from that fighter, which was probably under development at the time that the Sword Worlds were sort of conceptualized. Jakt, attack, spanning. There you go. And yeah, like let's continue this. Sorry, rather than getting distracted by it. It's designed to provide a measure of defense against incoming assault shuttles and similar craft It is an unusual hybrid of starship and vehicle systems, creating a craft that can reach low orbit and engage enemies operating there, but is intended to be ground-based and operated by planetary rather than space forces. The Gripen has no internal gravity, important, since it is not intended to operate in space. It uses a minimal M drive to nullify its mass, also important, enabling the high burn thruster to produce an incredible rate of acceleration. So long as power remains, the M drive can provide a little thrust, enabling an out-of-fuel Gripen to make an assisted glide home. Glide. Primary armament is a single Starship-grade torpedo carried on an external pylon, backed up by a pair of laser cannon. The laser cannon are vehicle-grade weapons that do little damage to a starship, but are entirely sufficient to take on aircraft should the Gripen intercept them. Okay, and then we have this wonderful illustration, which is quite blocky. And it does, in some sense, follow the aesthetic principles of the Sword Welders. However, and we've got a funny craft here. It's a little bit in between a vehicle and a starship, as mentioned. Now, the most striking things about the description for me, and it's seen in the statistics as well here, you've got a 10-ton ship that is streamlined and, importantly, has non-gravity aerofins. Are the aerofins wings? Or should there be additional control surfaces there? The other thing too, M drive, nullifying the mass, but not providing propulsion. No artificial gravity. So does that mean it just means that it basically turns the 10 tons into essentially zero mass, so those engines can really push it hard? But it sounds like it's still maybe dealing with drag in the atmosphere, as opposed to, I guess, the other Traveller ships, because they have some form of artificial gravity, are able to sort of move with less resistance. And it's kind of like in that sort of Viking style. I can just imagine these sort of like, you know, overhyped armored dudes getting in these ships and just going, ah, you know, and then doing an almost kamikaze style runs. Obviously not literally, but sort of like fly up from the planet, intercept enemies. I guess since they're armed with torpedoes, it seems weird that they should say, you know, they're dealing with landing ships and that sort of thing, because torpedoes are pretty heavy ordnance. But they've only got one, so it's like a dive bomber, but in the opposite direction. So it's, and then we have the deck plan here. Okay, the deck plans just represent things. For example, just because it has two maneuver drives at the back there, which we know aren't actually maneuver drives, they're high burn thrusters, it doesn't mean it has to have two. And the description also basically says, you know, it's a big massive engine basically with a cockpit strapped to it and wings. So I kind of feel like there are some issues with this as a fighter. If it's supposed to, you know, fight the atmosphere still, all of these bumps are issues. Now, I have been in touch with the artist who reached out, and we got provided some additional views of this thing. So we've got the back, and we have the side, and we have the top. And I have to admit, there are some more design elements to this thing that I kind of wish you could see in the art that they used. But in general, my particular feeling is, for a fighter that is more atmospheric than space, it's just way too blocky. And I talked to Mongoose about this, and I said, I'd like to do a slant on this, focus a little bit more on the deck plan. And the thing that came to mind was the Draken, yes, thank you. The F, I think it's just F-35. I'm not sure. anyway, good tip by the way, if you want to create scripts for Maya, this is one of the areas that AI is great at.
Yeah.
So let's just go to a Google search window, and I'll just go for Subdraken, and then we can look at some images of this thing. So this is the shape of it. It's quite unusual and distinct. I know it's probably popping up underneath my head, but you get the general idea. But it is one of the earliest flying wing designs, called a delta wing. So I just sort of like pitched the idea of like, obviously this is a tribute in name to a Saab plane, so why not integrate some more Saab DNA into it? So with that, I also want to use some elements from this original design so that it still feels like, you know, when we do variants, it's nice to feel as if like this could just be something else in the production line or a variant, you know. Even many fighters have different variants, right? Like the Gripen is about to have its, well, it's in production for its E and F versions. So without further ado, I have been working on it, and this is kind of what I've come up with so far. Now, it's not finished being detailing. I haven't finished the detailing, but you can kind of see where the design is working. So, and actually from the front, let's see, where did it go? We actually kept the wing shape a fair bit. So some of these elements we're definitely sort of keeping in there. I'm going to have some of the harder edges, but I kind of felt like we wanted to make it look a little bit more atmospheric, since it did say they're primarily used for that, and will be very fast. Of course, it's all engine, so we put in something quite big. I kind of gave it a bit of some stealthy lines as opposed to like just the sort of bulky lines that the original was using, which looks like it would be perfectly functional in space, but as a space fighter that uses artificial gravity. We've still kind of got some DNA left in there with this sort of like ram-like front. And actually, this was a design carryover that I noticed from the nose here. So it's sort of like an arrow-like shape. It also kind of looks a little bit like a bird. And I think my version looks even more like a beak. And actually, the raven, for example, was one of the symbols that the Vikings sort of... It's a symbol of Odin. And the Vikings sort of... had banners with ravens on them, for example, in many cases. So it's kind of like a carryover. So I'm kind of trying to carry that interpretation of, you know, this total pop culture version of, you know, a space Viking. And then with the paneling, I was looking at, you know, I've got this on my other window so I can see some of the files in there. You can see some of the references that Mongoose have sent us over. This one in particular, there's a lot of lines, a lot of geometry going on, so we can carry that over. But the other thing I wanted to sort of focus on is the fact that the Gripen looks quite discordant with the other small craft and spacecraft from the Sword Worlds. Now, it is a lot more in line with their vehicles, and it is a hybrid, so I do want to be fair. But like, if we look at their other ships, they look quite distinctly different, almost organic in shape. They do look quite suspicious. But this would not be our first time dealing with these kind of shapes, would it? I know we had a lot of giggles when we were doing the small craft campaign, in particular with the Pinnace, which ironically was the only one of those ships that didn't look like a pinnace.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can kind of see this sort of like, I don't know, it almost looks like a really ancient sort of like sea creature.
Arthropod or something.
Yeah, or like a cuttlefish almost.
Ah, yeah.
And a lot of their ships kind of look like that sort of shell shaped. But notice the design here with these sort of like flowing, I don't know, it's almost like an elongated shield of sorts. So I was just thinking like we could maybe unify the design a little bit more with their fleet by also meeting halfway between their ground vehicles. And like if I move on to their vehicles, let's see, you can see they're quite blocky, and I would be, yeah, this is the same artist too that's done the ground vehicles, it looks like, from the tags on the images. So, and then this is the one that, the P984 that Alvin's working on at the moment. So there's quite a bit of variation, but I just wanted to kind of unify those. So this is my thinking, that we have these sort of like panels, and you can kind of see that ribbing there echoes the sort of ribbing you would see on the tops of these like gunboats and things. So yeah, that's kind of like the direction I've taken it in, and it's not meant as an insult to the original artist. This is very much like just one of those things that I really wanted to do differently. But yeah, we're sort of like keeping a little bit of the DNA of that original design, just making it look a little bit more in line with its original description. So, you need to add eyes. Slick looking, I like it. Where does the torpedo hang? So the torpedo's on the bottom, it's going to be a bit more form-fitting. And yeah, the bottom is the least developed. I actually have made these custom laser cannons, and this is also another thing that I have actually directly taken from the design.
Yeah, they look cool.
So yeah, these all, rather than being integrated with the hull, though, we'll use the same system we used in Operation Maelstrom, so we'll be able to switch them out for whatever. The two different versions, each mirroring each other, so they're not symmetrical. You can kind of see there the end of these things, and how that is essentially this shape here. So, what do you guys think of the direction so far? The fighter has a good profile. Yeah, the profile is really nice. And I kind of felt like the fins were cool, and they actually, when you look at the shape, they kind of mirror this shape, which I've taken from the original wing, sort of at the back here. And I kind of was really appreciative for these other angles, because they gave me a lot of ideas. And I still want to integrate these shapes into the wings. We're just not at that phase just yet. So I don't want to make it as blocky. Again, I kind of want this to be a sharp, still keep the blockiness for me, keeping that in is sort of going for more of a stealth influence, which is why you can kind of see these sharper lines that I've put in there, like these sort of like jagged, almost teeth-like protrusions, are classic shapes you would see on like an F-22 or a YF-23, or the, but basically American stealth fighters, or should I just say stealth fighters, because I'm not so sure that the Russian and Chinese knockoffs actually are that stealthy, but
is there anyone else who makes stealth fighters or what?
lots of people are making them. Turkey's making them.
Oh.
Iran is making them. Japan is making them. Britain is making them. There's a bunch of different 6th generation fighters in development, but my understanding is America makes real planes, Europe makes real planes. And Russia does make real planes,
Out of
but you can't trust the statistics.
Yeah.
And one of the best aviation stories is about the F-15, because I think it was the MiG-25 Foxbat. Americans were piss scared about this fighter that was able to intercept the SR-71 Blackburn, and they were freaking out and needed to create an answer for that. And basically, Russia was putting out a bunch of propaganda about all the super abilities of this plane.
Mm.
So they designed the F-15 in response to that. And then a Russian pilot defected with the MiG-25, and they basically realized it's just one giant motor that can go in a straight line, basically. And it couldn't do half of the stuff they were saying, but they'd actually made the F-15, and to date it's one of the most successful fighters ever created.
Oh.
Partially by virtue of the fact that it actually is being used in war. Like, I mean, the F-22, fantastic, but as far as we know, it has one kill to its name, and it is a Chinese balloon.
Oh.
Of course, you wouldn't know otherwise, would you? So,
Good point.
if it's doing its job right.
Yeah.
In any case, so I'm looking for some of these shapes. I'm just removing some edges and lines that we don't need. I probably need to create a line here to keep that flowing, so I'm only working on one side of the fighter at the moment too, and right before the stream, it's kind of focusing on this underwing section. Just you can see here there's a cavity, and on the other side it's just filled in. So yeah, I'm just adding a little bit of detail. I kind of feel like some of these shapes are what give it that more science fiction-y feel to it. That and the sort of like, I realize it's a bit odd in the nose, but again, this is sort of like a tribute to the faction that created it, and also, you know, a nod to the original model. And the cockpit too, I haven't talked about, but here they had this really blocky cockpit. So I've just taken the same concept and I've just made it slightly more like, I don't know, X-wingy? I don't know, so it's sort of like a tiny bit more aerodynamic than the original version. Still blocky and mean looking.
Yeah, it has a real good attitude.
But I don't know if I'd want to be sitting in this thing. Like, there's a lot of nonsense in the way. But oh well, I don't know. It does feel a little bit more protected than a sort of open glass cockpit. France makes real planes. Don't believe your eyes. It's a mirage. A bit of aviation humor. Of course, that's a type of plane from France, the Mirage. Which, in hindsight, does sound kind of funny. Alrighty, so I want this line to continue. The best thing I can do now is turn on my grid snap, and I'm going to just use my multicut tool to create a new line from here to here. And in the process, I might just try and get rid of or add some additional geometry here. Whoops, I think I'll just go right down there and do some mergers, because I've been ending up with some funny shapes. But basically, when I do cuts like this to add symmetry back into a model, I try to remove the older lines, and I kind of feel like, let's see, is that actually on the grid? No, it's not. Like, I'd like to get rid of this shape a little bit. So what I might do is just create another line down to here. And essentially I'm going to select this edge. Actually, not all of that edge. It's an awkward shape, if I'm being honest, but let's see, I want to get rid of that. And let's delete that. Let's delete this. And yeah, it doesn't make too much of an effect on the physical model. Like, it doesn't look great, but we'll be able to get that paneling in so it's even. And kind of would have been cool. Like, I know these fighters don't have shields in Traveller, which is kind of weird, really, that it's armor based. If you think about it, but what are you having to giggle at? The French fighter should be called the baguette.
Yeah.
Traveller fans, is there a version of Space France in Traveller? I mean, we've got the Sword Worlds, which are clearly space Vikings, so that's a valid question.
Yeah. Do you think there would be like Napoleonistic civilization, or?
Well, they could be Sun King, like, couldn't they? Like Louis the 14th.
Ah.
That could be one way to
Sun
go.
King, right?
That's what I said, didn't I?
Yeah, I can't remember if the Sun King is the 14th.
Yes.
Yep.
The Sundown King was the 17th. Oh. Alright, let's see. So let's add back in this paneling. So you don't need to have perfect geometry all the time. The main thing is that we're just focusing on the areas where we're lacking the symmetry. And again, if we look at the lines here, let me just turn off the grid. You can see that the flow of edges here is just not straight. And the panels just kind of make it feel like, I kind of think about the fact that, you know, what does the frame underneath look like? Like, actually modeling it is pointless because we're never going to see it. But I like to visualize what it might look like the skeleton underneath. And that's why the paneling, when I'm looking at this paneling, see how it's like evenly distributed. Again, let me just deselect this so you can kind of see the paneling on the hull. So it's evenly spaced out, and we can even see on our grid when we have it turned on. Wait, that was edges, not the grid. Here we go. Even I make mistakes. You can see that the larger squares in the grid, that's every inch of the scene. So the fighter is approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and a half inches long, which space-wise, basically the wings, because they're flanged out and everything, it will end up being the volume of 10 ton, but as far as the game system is concerned. But you're having the paneling following these lines. I kind of imagine like the ribs of the structure underneath are spaced out at like 1.5 meters or so, or at least these joins. So that's why I wanted to add that symmetry back in. It's not for aesthetics. It's actually just to make the paneling look more authentic. So let's go ahead and select this. And then I'm just going to do a offset of 0.2, and then we're going to go for a second extrusion at a thickness of 0.2 and an offset of 0.2. So we get that diagonal, and you can see that creates the plate there. Now we also can do something over here, although I'm kind of inclined, you have the cockpit opening up. The thing is, when you get out of a cockpit, most fighters have a way to either have its own ladder that comes out, or a place that a ladder can attach to. Small things like those no step symbols and that sort of thing really can make a difference. Now this is a bulky fighter, it's quite well armored, but what I'm thinking is we actually have a separate plate here, like a little gap, where we could potentially create some asymmetry in the model. Now, I'm not going to do that until the end, but what I'm thinking of is that on one side we have basically this section divided into two plates. So if you imagine one here and one here, right? And then on the opposite side, that's all just one plate. And then this section here, we actually do just a couple of tiny little extrude downs. Now I'm just demonstrating so that you end up basically with integrated steps there. So the pilot would get out and could, you know, hop up the side on that or something like that. Doesn't necessarily have to be holes, it could just be panels, a hint of how this craft might work. And I la baguette de fromage. What? Isn't that like cheese? I mean, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Tasty.
So yeah, I think the trick would be then I'm gonna test out and see how this looks, but I'm trying to create some lines on this paneling. It's not 100% even. I don't think it's too much of an issue if it sort of like turns a little. But the question is where and how this should continue. Because with every sort of model that I build, like just adding a tiny little bit of asymmetry somewhere kind of increases the authenticity. And sometimes it's as simple as like, think about your car.
No.
What? Well, you don't have one at the moment, do you?
No, I don't want to think about it.
Okay. So you do have one.
No.
No. All right. In any case, on your car, for example, unless you're driving an electrical vehicle where it might be centered, it might not be, but your fuel panel that you sort of like push to, you know, refuel the car is an example of a piece of asymmetry on your vehicle. The antenna on an older vehicle would be a similar thing as well. It's going to be offset. It has a purpose, right? The panel's there because you need to refuel the car. The antenna's there because you need to, you know, get a radio signal through. And it's not there for aesthetics, it's there for a purpose. Like the asymmetry on a fighter might be like the refueling gun. Even like stealth fighters have pop-out versions which do provide some asymmetry, and from what I understand, a little bit of asymmetry on a stealth fighter also can help with its radar signature. So in any case, I'm kind of getting to the point where it's getting harder to predict exactly where we will put things. The other thing too is like maybe this panel will be L-shaped, so that it's just like this little ladder section that's separate. Also, this is usually where you have your sort of pilot name. Now, I don't need to add that to the hull, but sometimes it's not about design for a real product, but for rather how easy will this thing be to paint. And like right now, I think I'm going to just add some paneling here as well. And this is just sort of like about adding areas where the paintbrush can catch. And I'm deliberately not modifying some areas just because I want to go back when I'm adding that asymmetry. So I want to do that once I'm finished with the symmetrical parts, to go back and do that. Let's see, 0.2, 0.2, need a little bit of a drink.
Hard points on the bottom.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I can agree to that. I don't think we'll be tackling the bottom today, but there's a nice area here along the bottom. It'll be slightly angled, but that's nice and flat and quite thick, so that would be an ideal candidate for it. Also, I think we'll have hard points in the torpedo, so that it will attach in that way. So much stuff to have done by end of year. Yeah. And not to mention, I'm supposed to be getting ready for a campaign in February. So, and Of course, when we do Gridforge, which is probably good to talk about again since we only have 10 minutes, it'll mostly be about doing floor panels. And yeah, I know, for example, big shout out to Shergol, who has rebuilt almost an entire lab ship using the system. And it looks absolutely awesome. But I mean, you've test printed it. What's your impressions, Shergol, if you're still listening and able to chat about its ease of use versus OpenWalk? Also, Dalton, did you see those pictures of the lab ship? Cue Dalton's, now let's make it as anti-high lightning. And hello, Dalton. I would love more interesting ideas, like the way that the cockpit's detached in space above and beyond. Oh, I haven't heard that for a while.
I didn't really understand that. What does it mean?
Yeah, it was a TV series from the 90s.
Oh.
They had these hammerhead fighters, I think.
Okay.
They were some cool designs. But yeah, if you just look up Space Above and Beyond, they're like a space carrier. It was kind of a Wing Commandery type show. Only one season, I think.
Oh.
The lab ship was your first second Dynasty ship. Unusual custom blink that you started with a 1 to 270 model. But to be fair, that is more manageable, and I do believe the lab ship is the largest one we did.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine how in the hell that is supposed to be 400 D-tons, because it looks absolutely ridiculously massive compared to, ships that are 800 D-tons.
Oh, yeah, that's...
I don't think it's wrong. We based it...
That's the issue. It probably isn't. And that makes me think of other things that might be wrong instead.
This is one thing that I've had to learn to let go of with Traveller. Is sorry, I was just picking the my new favorite thing with printing is using mouse ears. It's not available in Prusa Slicer, but it is available in I was going to say Bamboo Slicer, but what I actually meant to say, of course, is Orca Slicer.
Oh.
Yes, thank you, because I actually was blanking.
Oh.
What, your wife got into an accident?
No.
That's horrible. Is she okay? Hopefully it was just a minor collision. I'm not allowed to call them accidents anymore. It's one of those lines from Hot Fuzz.
Oh, I haven't seen that since I was...
Oh, it's a brilliant movie. It's a brilliant movie. Ah. Especially when it... the ballur på slutet. Spoilers. Let's see. You've been reconfiguring the lab ship as you go. Yeah, there's plenty on the Discord about it. Yes, there is, but I was just asking your opinion of the system of Gridforge for customization. I find it way easier to do because the brilliant thing is you can put the floor frame in and you don't have to rip it out when you want to change the interior. It's brilliant.
Should we show that?
I showed it at the top of the string.
Oh, okay.
On the sphere.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, she's okay, but the car is being towed to the collision center. Oh, that doesn't sound like fun. I'm sorry that happened. Was it like is it icy for you guys? Yeah, we've been getting our first frosts and ices, scraping the windows. The D tonnage is measured without the center pinnace. Pinnace. What? I think that's a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. The D tonnage is measured without the pinnace. It's not a pinnace. It's just it's a launch, isn't it? Or a ship's boat. It's a ship's boat. It's only 30 ton. Look at me, travellering. I wanted to make a present for my referee who ran us through that adventure. Oh, cool. So it's probably the same adventure that Shergol's running with it then. Makes it super easy to customize, Shergol says. Dalton says, I would love to see the Gridforge system. Let me know when I can send you money for it.
Ooh.
What? Oh, December. We're having a instant release on my mini factory. But yes, basically, again, you have these tiles Let me make my video camera big. So this is what fits into the ship. It uses the support eclipse, but we also have open look converter, so it's completely cross compatible with our existing stuff. And then you just can, where's my floor gone? So this is the sphere ship, top deck, and it's just a matter of like popping it out. Like, let me see if I can do this. There we go. So you just pop out the floor and pop it back in again in any order you want. Obviously you can do larger pieces like this one. It might, actually I'm not going to bring that out because it's sort of like connected, but for example, if I wanted to pop this floor out, I can, and I can change the orientation. I could swap it out for a completely different tile, and even on the deck below, so this is the deck below, you can see like we're missing a couple of tiles here that I took out for demo purposes. For example, here we have our beds with lockers on the back, and we can just slot those down into here. Sorry, this is hard to do without looking, but yeah, it just slots down into place with a little bit of friction. You can see it's actually fairly strong. It takes a little bit of tension. That wasn't in properly either. And if you really want strong tension, there are a variety of sizes. You can actually see here that it says 3. So John's made templates for 0 to 7, I think, which is excessive, but that does sound like our dear John. But I was going to say, even the airlock here is its own sort of push-out thing. And I think this makes it a lot easier to print and paint, get the paintbrush in, and you don't feel like you're about to break the entire ship. And the other thing too is ships get heavy. And that feeling of not having it sort of like explode really helps. So let's see. Depending upon Traveller version, it goes from 10 to 50 D-tons. What, the one that's on the lab ship? Can we also print larger grids in one piece? Yes. The recommended max size, though, is 4. So I don't think we'll be doing larger than 4x4 grids, but anything in between. The reason why 4 is because the discrepancy between different 3D printers really gets noticeable. And it's kind of hard to see here, but if I look back at our sphere model and we just take a look under the hood, you can see the frames here. But you can see like these are 3x1 frames, and these are single frames down here. You can see they actually have gaps for tolerance, and they fit together a lot nicer than open lock tiles, because they're technically not 25.4 millimeters. I think they're 25.2 millimeters.
Yep.
So there's just a little bit more leeway, and you're not going to have the whole sort of expanding out too much. So I think a great solution for that. You use a lot of 4x4s in the lab ship. Yeah. 25.3. Mm-hmm. Okay, there you go. Someone is more of an expert at Gridforge than we are. And it looks like a churgle. Printer accuracy may cause issues in grids larger than 6 tiles in any dimension. Tamsin says, in CT it was 40-ton pinnace included with the 400. Okay, but the pinnace has wings. I've never seen an illustration of it with wings. Included in the 400 tons, included in it. Okay. So confusing. I like it to be a big ship anyway, because it looks like a space station. Anyway, sorry. I think the system is good. We're going to provide a ton of different base tiles based on our past ones. It unifies the level of the floors so that you should be getting some of our older tiles that all have an even level. It's going to be open source, so other creators will be able to use the system. at least the grid system anyone can print. No one will own it. Obviously, our tiles are where we're applying our own copyrights. But yeah, it's 4 o'clock. I didn't make a ton of progress on this thing, but my main intention was to show you the direction. So personally, again, from this, using the description and coming up with this, I feel this pays tribute to the original version, whilst also sticking a little bit closer to the intention of the design. I think we've still got something that looks mean and Viking-y. It's got some DNA from Saab planes in it. It's got some, you know, not curves, it's got sharp lines for the most part. But still, you know, interesting shapes. I think it'll look good on a table. Look great painted up. We're still not finished. We're probably going to add a bit more noise and geometry to the hull. A little bit of that promised asymmetry by the time we're finished with it. And yeah, I think also hidden in this scene somewhere, I've got the tlattle. God, it's always such a mouthful. Just to show you the difference in scale. The tlattle is kind of big. Its deck plane is ridiculous, really. Because this is only meant to be 8 tons and this is 10. But then it becomes about sort of like, yeah. It's one of those areas where it's that plus minus 10% really matters. So, that's the progress so far. That's what we have for this week. I'm just going to do some quick updates on the Soul Survivor Kickstarter and the 5th Frontier War campaign in the next little bit. And have a wonderful weekend, everyone. I think we'll be back next Friday, of course. I mean, we've got to go for the full 2024 52 episode run, right? So yeah, we'll be back in some form or another next week. Yeah, and since Christmas and New Year's don't fall anywhere near a Friday, I think we really are good this year to do the entire year. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. See you next time. And I will stop blathering now. Bye, guys.
Bye.